production show.
I don't know much about him. If you come right to the mic, mate, and we'll fire. I don't know anything about Mark Whitehand.
Mike
Except
Whitehand. Yes,
Mark-
brother. Mike Whitehand.
What's his name?
No, I was joking. You said Mike for a minute, didn't you?
Yeah, what's his name? Mark.
Mark.
But I know him from somewhere. Did he work with Dax?
Yeah, but also he did all Paul's video, didn't he, early on?
The Clifftop video.
Yeah, all that kind of crap.
Cuts
Yeah.
with our shades.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
So you're starting your podcast?
Yeah, I'm trying to get as many in the bank as possible. Though,
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Yeah,
You're filming a load and then releasing?
yeah. Trying to get ahead of the game.
How do you feel like it's gone so far?
Well, first of all, we filmed all the sort of in between shows, which would just be me and him, really. Do you know what I mean? Because we want to put some out every week.
Oh, so you can do some with you and Mark?
Yeah, just chatting shit, I suppose.
Got ya. So he'll be
In
like your
between
number two.
guests,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought about having a number. You know, like Rogan obviously has his number two, Jamie, but in the background. And then there's some other podcast hosts that literally do have a number two. It doesn't say like loads, but they contribute some really good shit.
Yeah. So I thought it's his idea, really. He's trying to make this concept work, you see, because he wants to record people's shows. Are we on, are we?
Yeah, we're recording, man.
All right. just throw that out at me. Yeah.
You should know by now, man. I hit record.
Yeah.
Well, we started chatting. I thought we just got to hit record.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I suppose we're working together. It's quite exciting because he wants to be a podcast. You know, that's what he wants to do. I need a podcast, but I'm the first one there, and so it's quite exciting because he's still figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out.
So why Doncaster? Is that where the studio is at, or where he's at?
Where he's at, yeah, and he's worth travelling for. Plus, I like him. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite. I'm looking at it as like a creative project. I don't know how you look at yours, but in coaching, you can't really like. I'm not going on every week coaching and just telling people what I think about the world. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we're coaching. So when it comes, but I want to express what I think about the world. So like,
yeah, get you.
A podcast is a good chance, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've had debates now. Do I carry on? Because I'm coming up to 100 episodes.
Oh, yeah, you got to carry on.
Why?
I want somewhere to come. Like, do you know? What have you gained from it?
Oh, I love it, is the first thing. I've got to meet some amazing people, have some amazing conversations. It's an expensive hobby, though.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at 120 quid, 25 quid an episode.
Yeah.
Plus, I had this concept. I spoke to James. So James is my number two. He's incredible. He's my accountant too. He's just an absolute legend. We're talking about buying one of these. These aren't that expensive. You can get these for about £1,000 and a good mic. So then I can go and travel to... Because I could have had Dax Moy on. But Dax was like, no, I'm not being funny. I'm not going to travel all the way to Leamington. But I was like, I'd love to speak to you.
Where is he?
Essex.
He ain't travelling to Doncaster, is he?
No. That's what I mean. So I'm like,
well,
really
you know,
good guess.
That's your loss, isn't it?
Well, I felt like mine. So I was like, okay, maybe I go to him.
Well, if you had somebody who could set all the tech up, you could go to anywhere.
But then it becomes mega expensive. You have to take a camera crew with you.
Mark Whitehand.
Mega expensive though.
And then
I'll speak to him.
Worthwhile.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Expense.
You kind of go, do I want to really make this work? If you do, you can't keep scrimping by. You've got to go for it. And I haven't really gone for it yet.
It's nice. This is decent.
Oh yeah, I love it.
This is better than 99% of setups out there, isn't it?
It's great. Unless I pay guests to come here. Because that's the level you're at now. But then again, it becomes that game then of, I need to get numbers, I need to get people. And I've never played it like that. I just like chatting with people. But
who would you get on if you wanted to, and you had to? Who do you think you'd have to pay that you'd like to come on?
See, this is the thing. There's not like celebrities that I'd want on. I'm not a celebrity fan, mate.
I'm not a big celebrity.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I've got my like ridiculously like not gonna ever happen people like Jordan Peterson's.
Cool. Well, when they tell me, if you could get anyone, if
so,
Jordan come on in and it was like, you'd get Jordan Peterson.
I'd get Jordan Peterson. I'd love to chat to someone like Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
I'd love to chat to Goggins. But I think he said everything he's got to say.
Mate, yeah. Maybe you just go for a run with him.
No. No, mate. That's the last thing I'd do. Who else would I like? There's certain authors of books.
Go on, one more. One author.
James Hollis. He'd be a great guest.
Yeah. I've been in one of his things, you know, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what we were speaking about last time.
It's a couple of his things, actually.
And I went home and checked the books. I was like, it's him.
It is him, James Hollis, yeah. What a bloke.
Incredible.
What a bloke. He sits there. I don't want to say he's like this old bloke, but he is an older bloke, and he sits there and he's delivering, and you're like, just so relaxed, so laid back, but so like articulately spot on with it. You're like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I loved his stuff.
I had a Jungian analysis on last week, Dr. Phil Goss.
I know, I need to watch that. I saw.
Yeah, mate, phenomenal. Very monotone though, so like as long as you can get past that, like you just said, like this oldest guy, really small, dead shy, but fucking smart, man.
Yeah, wow, the young stuff, mate, is
yeah.
very fat.
On this retreat though, the guy who ran it was big into Jung, but he's been doing a lot of somatic therapy now. I think that's what they call it, somatic therapy, because he said sometimes you can get so involved in the analytic work that you forget about your body. And he's like, he had to go back to his body a little bit. So nice. I'm going to try this somatic therapy. I don't know what it is. I've just started my first breathing coach session on Monday. Sleeping with my mouth taped up, so I can breathe from my nose.
Like it? Well, I know what it's
easy.
It's easy. Well, you're obviously breathing quite well.
That's what I mean. I thought it would be horrendous. You're obviously
breathing all right if you find it easy.
Very easy. Like I forget it's on.
Why?
So whether I can exercise with it now, that would be next level.
Exercise mouth, nose only breathing.
Yeah.
My friend does a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's
a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I don't get the
science. He's actually teaching me. Well, not teaching me, but encouraging me to like just go for a walk, like hill walking, just nose only, just breathe nose only. And you think, oh, easy, and then you realise walking uphill, you're like, oh wow, I need to open my mouth, don't I? Like, and sort of building it up. Yeah, it's great for you though.
Apparently, I'm just trying to get a new morning routine, and breathing's never really been a part of it.
What about your training now? Because you're shredded, aren't you?
I'm injured. That's why I'm shredded, because I'm doing things like light weights, chin-ups, push-ups. I'm not.
Whenever I hear lightweight, I just want to go lightweight,
baby.
Lightweight,
baby. Stairmaster. I did a fast
Stairmaster.
Yeah, 45-minute Stairmaster. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put a podcast on, mate. You sweat your tits off.
Stairmaster.
It's not. Yeah. Yeah, the revolving one.
Yeah, I know they are.
Yeah, not the.
Reminds me of American Women.
Yeah, there's so many.
Like you're now on Stairmaster.
There's so many chicks on the Stairmaster.
That's why you're on there, isn't it?
No, not at all. Like
they're
doing their leg extension, like these weird patterns, like to basically build up their ass. I think. Whereas I just like the sweat. I actually like sweating.
Yeah, me too. I got a spin bike and I put as many clothes on as possible.
Do you?
And just spin on it. Yeah, just to get his sweat on.
Yeah, it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I kind of hate cardio, but actually I don't. That's just a stupid statement that I say. I don't hate it.
Nah, I think people just like to say that, don't we? We get caught up in stuff like, I hate cardio. You're like, actually, it's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't mind. I only want to do the two extremes, really. Like, I either want to go walking or, like, sprinting. Do you know what I mean? Either something really high like intervals or nothing in the middle. I was looking at this chap on the way here and he was running and I was like, I really wish I enjoyed running. What a nice day to go running. Like, you know, he was out there, you could see he was smiling, he was good runner, obviously, nipping on a pace. I was like, Matt, that'd be great, but it ain't me.
Have you ever got good at it? Because I think that's where the enjoyment comes from. Well, like anything.
I think I come like in the top 10 of a mud run once by me.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you must be decent. Naturally.
That was when I was playing a lot of football and stuff like that. Whereas now,
football's running.
Yeah, but you're running after a ball, aren't you?
Something, yeah.
Well, not after a ball, but you're playing a game. Like just running, trudging along, listening to music. It's never really interested me after a while. But anyway, I need to know how the Vision Quest went.
Okay.
Just quickly, because this
is why I can't talk about it just quickly. So it depends.
Oh no, not quickly. Just talk about it. You know, I'm happy to talk about the Vision Quest. I can't move forward with my life until I know what happened.
Okay, it's probably wise that I explain what a Vision Quest is because people will be thinking.
Sounds like a board game.
It does, Vision Quest or a computer game.
Sounds like something my little nephew would play.
Yeah,
what are you playing?
It was no joke.
Vision Quest.
Trust me, it was no game.
Go on and hit me up.
So. For people listening, I mean, do you know what it is?
No,
I think we.
You just told me you were going on a Vision Quest where you were fasting off a lot of stuff.
So basically, it was 11 days in the Lake District, but I knew that in the centre of those 11 days, there was a 4-day, 4-night period of isolation where you'd go off into the wilderness or the forest, whatever you want to call it, or the mountains, on your own, and you wouldn't see anyone for that period of time, and you wouldn't eat, and you wouldn't be distracted, you wouldn't read, you wouldn't write. You wouldn't go off walking, you wouldn't do anything. So you'd basically be kind of sat fasted of many things, including all distractions it was 110 hours food wise, which I assumed would be the most difficult thing, but that was easy. The hardest thing was the crippling boredom.
So what were you doing? Just sat in the woods on your own?
Yeah, so they prep you, and again, like even now I'm finding it hard to know what we did for the first 4 days, but it was fucking brilliant. And I tell you what, it was brilliant. None of us were checking our phones. And at night, we sat around a big table, we said grace and thanks for our food, and we ate and talked. Mate, it was so nice.
What kind of people were there?
Not my usual type of people.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lad that was 35 there that was in really great shape, and then there was a lad that was 36 who's a counsellor, trauma counsellor. So there was lads kind of like, yeah, that I could really relate to. And then there was some older. There was somebody there who was 70, I think. So it's amazing to me that people at 70 are still looking for things in life.
Yeah.
And what I noticed, most of the people were, it's a bit like, I think we spoke a lot about identity last time. You know how you have a kid and then you become a dad. And then when your kid leaves, then, well, where's my identity? Or we spoke about this, didn't we, with jobs? Yeah. Like, anyway, so kind of the first 4 days was that, which was amazing. But they were prepping you to go out with some form of intention. So you don't just want to go and sit out there and just like twiddle your thumbs. You kind of want to have a like while am I here kind of moment. And I didn't really know why I was doing it. But you know when someone calls you, you just like, I just got to go.
Yeah.
But you get the answers after kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was that.
A bit like the flow cycle.
Yeah.
In a sense. A bit like the...
But with flow, don't you kind of know what you want to get from it? Like...
Okay, I should have said that better. Not the flow cycle, a bit like the... I'm trying to think of the name now. Oh, God. Where you would write a question in your journal possibly before you went to sleep and let your subconscious do the work on that. Wake up and just write and write and write. Whatever comes into your head.
Yeah.
The MacGyver method.
Right, okay.
So you do, after a period of hard day at work, if I'm trying to solve a problem and I can't quite think about it, I'll write it down on my whiteboard, forget about it, go off and walk and go live my life. And then the next day I walk in, I'm like, there's that question. And I start answering it, just trying to write whatever comes into head.
Does it work for you? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the idea, I suppose, that your brain's always working on an open question like that. And all the different changes of scene and stuff. You know when you can't find an answer and then you're in the shower and you're like, you know, like when your mate's like, you know that girl we went to school. You're like, oh, what was her name? What was her name? And then you're in the shower like washing your hair. We don't do that anymore. We're washing our beard. And then you're like, oh, Jenny. Yeah. This comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I get that. And it was a bit
Is it a bit like that?
Yeah, but with the question of like, what the fuck should I do with my life?
It's quite a big question.
So quite a big question.
Maybe that happens in the shower as well.
Well, I went out with the thought like, if I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, tomorrow, Alex, I'm really sorry, but you're going to die, man. You've got this terminal illness. And yeah, there's nothing we can do. And then I went and reflected back on my life. If I could think of one word, the word would be disappointing.
Really?
Really.
Disappointed with your life?
Absolutely.
No matter what you've all done.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. So I was like,
I've
why?
known you a long... Well, I haven't known you a long time, but our relationship has existed for a fair while.
Okay.
From when it started to where you are now. So I reckon I've met you.
Yeah.
And then I've not heard or seen you. And then at different points in this time period, we've kind of done something. And I'd say you've done a lot since I first met you.
Definitely.
That was probably only 5-6 years ago.
Which added to the question of like, well, why is it disappointing? That's kind of what I started investigating. I was like, yeah, I've done all this. I've got a mum and dad who love me. I've got a house. I've got a good crew of guys that I work with. I'm like, why on earth?
It's Wednesday afternoon. You sat here drinking coffee, talking to me.
Exactly, right?
For a living.
Yeah. Why is it disappointing?
Well, like this bit isn't disappointing, obviously.
And it's not. Like, from a rational point of view, I can step back and say I'm really lucky. But it's kind of words versus feeling. So, but then I did look at like the bigger things in life. What do people always say they live for? It's my kids or my relationships. So, and we spoke about that study that had been done and followed these people through. And I went and studied that and listened to a podcast on it. And they were saying, yeah, like the quality of your relationships are a big impact on how fulfilling your life is. So I kind of went out with that question in mind of like, yeah, well, let me get to the bottom of that, which was really, really good. So like you meet at like 5 a.m, but you're not allowed to speak to anyone on the Monday morning. You got all your kit ready, your backpack, your tent, your water, and stuff like that. And then you go off to the spot that you'd already pre-selected. So I selected this place next to this like lake or stream in the forest. Very small, very dark. It's quite eerie, actually.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just wanted to go there.
I wonder why.
Yeah, and I tried not to treat it like a Goggins challenge because I knew I could do it, but I didn't want to grit my teeth and just get through it. I wanted to kind of learn and try and be a bit kind to myself because I'm terrible at being kind to myself.
They obviously keep an eye on you because can you imagine the health and safety on that?
They don't keep an eye on
I've got a lot of people just fasting and out in the woods. It's like, what happened to them? Don't know. One could kill themselves. One got eaten by a
No, they
fox.
qualify you beforehand to make sure, I guess, that they think you're stable. And I guess if they didn't think you were mentally stable, they might not let you out there. But you do
imagine
like
the health and safety risk on that though. There must be some, surely.
I don't know.
Maybe not. They must be really
You say on a waiver and it's on you, right?
amazing.
What's more dangerous though, like not exploring or exploring?
Well, I get I'm not saying it's not dangerous. Like I'm just saying, imagine being the person running it, and I'd be like, right, I don't really know. We know these people a little bit. We've kind of, what's the word? When you've looked at people, you know, you've what am I looking for? When you've like a parkue dummy in a sense, you've probably got an idea of who they are, what they're about a little bit, and then you're sending them off for 4 days.
Sure, and you have a whistle, like so you know you blow that as hard as you can if you're in trouble. There is a buddy system though. So the person who's closest to you can't see them, but you have like an in between point. And in the morning, for example, I would go and put a stone on a slate, and then in the evening she would take the stone off the slate, and then in the morning I'd go and put it back on. So if I hadn't put it back on, she'd be like, "Oh, there's something wrong," and she could let.
Imagine being buddied up with me. I'd forget.
Yeah. Well, then I'd have to come and look for you.
Bloody hell, ruin it for everyone.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Was that the time? I got to put it there.
So I guess that is the safety protocol, and then you're on a map, so they know where you've pitched up.
Yeah.
So if they needed to, they could come and get you.
Taking me away from the health and safety, which I just made you talk about.
No, it's important. Like,
So 4 days you don't eat.
Yeah.
What was the toughest part of it?
Like I said, the crippling boredom and
the hunger was fine. You didn't get hungry. Did you get?
I was hungry. I was thinking about food a lot, but not. I wasn't sat there. Like, and I was thinking constantly, "Whoa, what's the first thing I'm going to eat when I get back?" But the worst part was like I wanted to do something. I wanted to reach for a distraction. So if I was at home, think about when you're at home. What's the longest you can just sit and do nothing? I didn't have my watch on me. I didn't know what time it was. But the first day, I literally, honestly, like, and most people said the same. I just slept.
I was going to say, how was your sleep at?
Yeah.
How's your sleep now after?
It's better.
Yeah,
everything's better.
Rewild and you're getting back in the natural rhythms of life.
Calm.
Yeah. I read about that. Like, I actually slept outside in a hammock for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Just like to try and improve my sleep. It's a long time ago, to be fair, man.
And I think you're coming off caffeine and stuff like that, so you're a bit like, so you sleep.
Yeah.
But they say it's like the cocoon. It's like you sleep in like your tent or your hammock or your tarp. And then a day later, like, you know, you open the tent and you come out and then your work begins. So, yeah, there was all this, like, the first 2 days was just me, like, desperate for some kind of distraction. And then the acceptance that I couldn't. So, here's the best thing. Gym. Didn't have to worry about it. 4 days. I ain't going gym. Food. What you're going to eat.
Did you train at all?
No. You can't, man. You
can't do some press-ups and stuff. Nothing like that.
You could, but no. And you don't want to. You kind of like, this is what I mean. You want to go gym. Nope.
You're allowed to explore and stuff. If I'm going for a walk.
You can do whatever the hell you want. They recommend you don't explore. Because, like, you get distracted. So if I got up every day and went, I'm going to go over this side. And that's not the point.
That's not the point. You just got to sit there in isolation.
So think about all these things, like food. I haven't got to worry about it. Gym, I'm not going. Work, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm here for 4 days. All those little tasks that I was supposed to do. Well, do you know what? I can't do them right here. I'm stuck here for 4 days. Are mum and dad okay? Well, do you know what? If they're not, I'm not going to hear about it until I get back. So after like a day, 2 days, all these thoughts, worries, stresses start to disappear. And then you're kind of left with some bigger stuff, like, you know, the big problems.
Go on.
Like, what am I doing in my life? How am I showing up? How am I behaving?
So what did you find?
I found loads, man. And I could go straight to the punchline.
Go on, go straight to the punchline. What did you find? I'm interested.
Okay. So I worked out that my life has been disappointing because I've never been able to live with an open heart.
Really?
Yeah. So I've never been able to love properly, and I've never been able to receive it. So I was like, it made total sense to me. I was like, no wonder your life doesn't feel great, because you've never experienced like any bliss or any joy. It's always in the middle. So I'm really good at suppressing shit. Discipline to fuck. Trying to beat the demons away all the time. But I've never been at the top for a bit, you know. I've never had kids that I can love. You know, I've repaired a relationship with my mum and dad, but it's, you know, it's...
What, did you get to the root of what caused it? You don't have to talk about it, but did you? What led you to that?
I kind of already knew.
You already knew, yeah.
I already knew.
Living with that open heart. Mate, I like it.
Yeah. But
I
then
think a lot of
like,
the stuff, that's when you see a lot of the stuff we possibly can do is as a protection mechanism.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? If we hold this tough exterior of discipline, and which is all good for us, sometimes it can stop us feeling the emotions we don't want to feel, can it? Stop us feeling the things we don't want to feel. Do you know what I mean? I suppose that was a lot of people used to say about Goggins. It's like, what's he running from all the time? What's he, you know, what is this all about? Like, is it healthy to be that, like, you got to keep this, you know, kind of mentality all the time? What's he afraid of? But I think his second book, he kind of opens up a bit more. But I haven't read it. Does he open up a bit more about that?
Yeah.
And soften up a little bit?
He does. I mean, he gave a speech recently and he burst out in tears, you know. He was just talking about his mum. So he's starting to soften. The hardest part is like, how do I bring all that I learned with me back into the real world?
Well, this is where you got to unpack it. Hey, I'm just going to... This is where I'm telling you what you got to do now. But you just start with the simplest thing, isn't it? Start with the simplest thing. You're like, what's the one thing you can do, get moving towards, that's going to allow you to open your heart a little bit more? I always look at the things I'm avoiding, the fears I have, the problems in front of me. That's where I go. So what am I avoiding through fear? What am I avoiding? You know, don't you? You know.
I do now, but it took days of non-distraction to get there, because I think we will avoid getting to the answers with distraction.
Well, keeping busy is a form of
distraction,
and distraction will, you know, distraction. Is it useful? Is it not? People say to me, for example, about anxiety and stuff, I get really anxious, so I distract myself from it. It's like, yeah, it's going to be useful for you if it stops you having a panic attack, isn't it? But to live your life just constantly needing to distract yourself, tame your mind in a sense, isn't it? You're almost not letting the mind loose, because when we let it loose, we don't like what we hear. We don't like what we see. But we have to, you know, I think if you want to live a free, sort of as freely as possible, you have to make friends with that mind of yours, don't you? Mm-hmm. You can't keep trying to tame it and control it and keep it on a leash. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's integrating.
It's like, actually, I've got to become comfortable with all this stuff I'm keeping the lid on.
Absolutely.
Because it comes out eventually, and it comes out when we don't want it to come out, when we're tired, when we're flipping, you know, under pressure and stress. All that shit comes out anyway. And then
or in ailments, and illness, you know.
Yeah, like, think of training. Like, I know I used to self-soothe with training a lot, and then what happens when you can't train? It's like your world implodes. That's what it used to be like for me. And you'd be like, oh my God, you know, is this helping me or hindering me? It's like positive thinking, isn't it? Is it helping me to think like everything's going to be all right, or is it hindering me from doing something about it?
Well, it was interesting because on the last day they did a big session on how you integrate back into normal world, and I was like, don't be stupid. I'm just going to get in my car. There's no integration to be had, but there was. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So when I got back, I was supposed to go to a gig the very next day in London, and I cancelled it because I thought just tubes and busyness just right now after 11 days of like, you know, no phone. I mean, there was anxiety turning my phone on, to be honest, but the first thing I did when I get back was be really careful about what I let in. So I've deleted YouTube, because Andrew Tate was a guy that was calling out to me. But upon reflection, I do like him. I like his charisma, his confidence, his courage, he's articulate. He's fucking ballsy. He doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, true. So I like him. But deep down at his message, I think it is touching a part of me that's angry.
Alex, mate, I feel like you've had this like epiphany.
No, I have.
I'm glad I'm here to have this conversation with you.
I have.
Because I left our last podcast and I was thinking, when we were talking about relationships and stuff, you know, I was driving home thinking, yeah, Alex got that's an area for you, isn't it? Not like, oh, you're broken, need to work on it, but like, you know, I could see you coming to a realization as we were talking, a bit of like, you already seen it in yourself probably, but you're like, am I a bit like, am I protecting myself from something? Do you know what I mean?
Big time, yeah. I've always had anger, mate.
And I was thinking, the Andrew Tate is laughing. You're like, yeah, Andrew Tate, I get, and we were talking about it. I get it. He is probably charismatic, and he speaks what he believes is his truth. And that is something that is attractive when you're not, isn't it? But like you said, you've just noticed at the deep core of it, you're like, maybe he's talking to the angry
part of me, for sure.
Me, and actually,
yeah,
maybe I do. It's amazing. Like, seeing clearly is a funny thing, isn't it?
Sure.
Like, when we're tied up in our own emotional baggage, it makes seeing clearly very difficult, I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you really hate something or angry or resentful, you can't see clearly enough to make good decisions. Do you know what I mean? We've been driven by this emotion, but when you're in it, you can't see it. Do you know what I mean? When you're in it, you can't see that happening. It's when you come out of it, you go, fucking hell, like, I'm starting to see this situation clearer. And that's what's happening to you, isn't it?
Even Goggins, I love him to bits, but I'm just not listening to him right now. I don't need, because I'm trying to be almost a little bit softer, not harder and tougher, because I can do that all day.
Well, anyway, I'd like to point you to something.
Go on.
When we worked together a long time ago, I sent you a book.
I know you did. Pena.
Is it
when things fall apart?
When things fall apart.
It was a beautiful book, by the way.
I think you should read it again.
Yeah, okay. It was weird that, because I was like, why the fuck's he sent me a book called When Things Fall Apart? But I loved it.
Well, I was trying to soften you up. I'll be honest. I thought I could have sent you a book like, to the point and about discipline and stuff. But you got that shit nailed.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to try and send you in a direction of possibly it's about being vulnerable and about being when things fall apart and you've got no ground underneath you. It's like there's no ground underneath me. A bit like what you experienced for 11 days probably. You're like, shit, no distraction. You're almost vulnerable in a sense, aren't you?
That's why they put you out with nature. You do realise, you are pretty vulnerable, man. Like, you're weak, you haven't eaten, like, stay there for a long time, you're done,
Did you find your mind got louder for a while? Like, loud and loud and loud and loud, and then all of a sudden, quieting down. I went on a silent retreat, and it gets loud and loud and loud and loud and loud and loud and loud. You're like, oh my God, my head feels like I can't stop thinking. I'm obsessed with my thinking. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's like the brain gives up and goes, and I'm done.
Actually, mate, that is exactly what happened. In fact, there was a time, I think a day and a half, 2 days, I was like, Alex, just don't lose the plot. Yeah. Just make sure you get back.
Because you're still trying to
hold
on tight.
Just went, okay, you're fine.
And the thing is, when we're out of control, I was thinking about this. I've had times in my life where I've been out of control. Like, I felt my life was unraveling. Do you know what I mean? Like, my life's unraveling in front of my eyes.
At what stage?
Multiple stages, mate. Different times.
Tell me about one as an example.
I think just in the past, in certain relationships where you think, right, this is changing. And I probably saw the error of my ways and my life just started unraveling. The people I thought, the people I was caring about kind of moved away from it. And you're like, oh my God, my life is unraveling. I don't like it. And myself, how I viewed myself, I was like, oh my God, like, have I been behaving like this? Do you know what I mean? I sort of saw myself and I saw myself for what I'd been doing and what I'd been. And my life just started to, that's the word, I felt like it was unraveling and I would do anything to get some control back. Whether that would be like to control another person, I felt like I was scrabbling around just trying to gain a form of control in my life again. Yeah. Because it was all felt like it was falling apart. Do you know what I mean? In myself, especially, I was like, God, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I was just clinging on to things, be like, and then I look back, I'm like, what the fuck was I on? Do you know what I mean? Like, in a weird way, like, what was I doing? I can't believe I behaved like that now. But it felt, and I've been in situations, it's a bit like when someone says, would you, bit of an extreme, but, could you kill someone? Oh, of course you couldn't kill somebody. It's like, well, if you're in a life or death situation where someone's going to kill you, you'd be amazed what a human will do to survive. Do you know what I mean? You'll do anything, won't you, to survive in a sense. Yeah. And I felt like I was doing anything I could, looking back, to keep things as they were, as I needed them, as I wanted them. Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's very painful when you notice how you're behaving.
Yeah.
A lot of regret hit me on those 4 days, mate, when I saw about what I'd done for 38 years.
But what an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
What
I've missed out on with mum and dad. It was very upsetting.
Yeah, but you got to, God, I might tell you what to do, but at some point, I've been there with different things. It's letting go. That's the hard bit in all of us, is let go. Like on your 4 days, like you said, it gets louder and louder because you just want to, like, you're trying to cling. It's trying to cling on, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
so, and it's like you let go through pure exhaustion. I imagine mental, physical. You're like, oh my God, you just let go. And it's the same, I think, with regrets. You can wrestle with them. You can beat yourself up about them. And at some point, you get so tired, I think, of it, you just you can let go. Do you know what I mean? If you're working on stuff like that.
They do point out what's important, though, don't they? So if if you've got a painful regret in your life and you have a look, well, the pain is I haven't been able to look properly. So therefore, by definition, I know what to work on. You know, the biggest regrets can often, it's like the biggest pain points can be our biggest drivers. It's the same kind of thing. Not that you should cling on to them, but at some stage as a man, you've got to look at all your regrets, and hopefully in the second stage, because I know Freud and Jung were different. Freud was about everything that happens to you in the first 7 years.
Yeah,
you know,
very
pretty
much
much
so.
that's it. You know, you're fucked if
Interpreting dreams is a big book of his as well.
it is. Jung was slightly different. He was more like the second part of your life is where you really need to expand and grow because you've lived a previous life.
Yeah, he talks about the biggest shadow being your unlived life.
Yeah, you're unlived.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
That's frightening.
The biggest shadow we carry around, and sometimes the biggest shadow we pass on to kids and partners is the shadow of our own unlived life.
Okay, this leads me on to something that I want to speak to you about, because when I listened to one of your trainings, I learned loads from listening to your content, but there was one thing that when you did a training for my guys that's really stuck out to me, and it's kind of been etched in my mind since. You talked about living a 10x life, like a life 10 times bigger than the one you're living. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And like instantly, that's quite exciting. Like, and for me, in between that gap is maybe the unfilled potential that we've got. So I'm like, well, that's a cool thing to pursue. So I was gonna like pick your brains a little bit about like what a 10x life looks like for you. Do you think you're living it? And then like how you would start to piece together a 10x life. So in terms of vision, in terms of plan, in terms of daily action, like how do you align everything to start?
Yeah, well, I suppose, first of all, back to regret, and then I'll flip to that.
Okay.
I think the fact that you have regrets shows that you've grown.
I think every man has regrets, don't they?
I think, but the fact that you have regrets shows you have grown as a person. You know, we're having this conversation, we're like, I can't believe how I was behaving. You know, you've come up, it shows that you can observe that now. You've come away from it.
Doesn't mean I fixed it all though, by the way.
Doesn't mean you fixed it, but the first step is to like, you got to see the error of your own ways sometime, haven't you?
I already knew it.
There's been periods where you kind of knew it, but you didn't know it enough to like get away from it, did you? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't feel it. I knew it logically. But
you didn't want to know. You don't know.
Really.
You don't. Sometimes we don't want to know what we know. Do you know what I mean? So I know this, but I don't want to know it. So I'm just going to keep avoiding it. I'm going to keep denying it. I think that's where positive thinking is used a lot with people as a form of denial, to get away from what they don't want to see.
But it's not a strategy to change, is it? You know, when you go, I'll just behave better next time. It's a terrible strategy.
Body positivity, right? Great thing. When does it become hindering, though? Like, when does it become hindering to an individual when you're just like, actually, now I'm really unhealthily...
Yeah, denial.
And I'm just, but, I'm happy. So I'm sure you are happy. I'm not saying you're not, but is it healthy? Like, is that, is it healthy? And that's why I think positivity is a wonderful thing. But I like it's not good when it divorces you from reality too far, is it?
I would have always said no, but I'm thinking after, even on the back of our conversation, like we spoke about like how you can have a drink of alcohol, which is supposedly like a terrible thing for your body, but really we could tip that against loneliness and isolation, and all of a sudden,
context.
The pint is become the thing that allows you to connect with
more people. Remove your isolation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, I never would have even given this a second view, but what about if body positivity, if they genuinely mean it and feel good, do you think that might offset some of the health stuff, or is that just a...
Yeah, I get it. Is it helpful? Is it hindering? Only the individual knows. Do you know what I mean? Is it helpful? If it helps you, then keep cracking on. And I'm not saying that everyone has to look a certain way or anything like that. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm just saying... all right, you like smoking, so crack on then. People, but everyone wanted to cut people smoking out, didn't they? That's killing people. It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's killing you. It's like, and it could affect other people. I get it, but you're like, well, it's killing you. But I think obesity is one of the biggest factors in everyone's health right now. But we make that okay. So it's like, well, where do you? There's got to be balance to it. It's like, okay, you're happy. It doesn't mean if someone's listening to this now thinking, God, I am really overweight, and I'm happy. Fine. I'm not like going to judge that person and say, God, you are less of a person than anyone else or anything. Whatever. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's going to be healthy for you physically in the long run.
No, I agree with that.
Because that's not reality.
Yeah.
Much like smoking. My dad smokes. I'm like, oh, Dad, he loves smoking, whatever. But I'm not going to go, you know what, I think, it's good for him, innit?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And I think whatever you normalise in life, I think normalising things can become quite dangerous if you're normalising things that aren't. For example, if there was a boy in here right now, or a girl, or whatever, and they were dangerously underweight, but they were happy, would we say, oh, you probably go, bloody hell, they need to sort that out, you know? But what about somebody who's dangerously overweight?
Mm.
What's the difference?
I think, like you say, the normalisation. So there's far more people overweight, therefore I don't think it feels like such a big deal, though, even though it is.
Like if we saw someone here, you go, well, maybe they've got something going on.
Yeah.
They need some help. But if someone's dangerously overweight, it's like, well, they're happy. It's like, well, is that good for you?
But I think that's where
do you know what I mean?
I think that's where society is in big trouble, when it's normal to be unhealthy and you fit in because you're unhealthy, which is pretty. I'd say that's probably accurate now. You fit in more, I'd say, if you were someone who didn't look really good. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if someone's in really good shape now, it's like, whoa, that person's in really good shape. If someone's a bit out of shape, it's just normal. It's
a funny thing because it's becoming, if I'm having this conversation, we're having this conversation now, there'll definitely be people listening to this saying, God, what a terrible thing to say, you know. But it's like, oh, you know, I don't get how that's become a thing. I wouldn't walk out there to somebody who was really overweight and just be like, oh my God, what's up with you? You know, you're fat, so. Do you know what I mean? That would be outrageously terrible behaviour. But if someone said to me, sorry, you're bald, I'd go, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean? Most people are irrational.
In a sense, so. Do you know what I mean? I am bald. You're right. Yeah, I've lost my hair.
Yeah, you are.
And you are overweight.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
But what's the difference?
The difference is some people are irrational. So some people respond and act dependent on their emotional set point.
Of course. Okay. I agree with that.
Yeah. So you could say something completely true, factually, and somebody could react completely irrationally, lose their shit, go angry, get upset. And we often now favour the emotionally unstable person versus the fact. I think,
the topic we're talking about of normalisation, I think we're just like this. We're normalising ill health a lot.
Sure, it's become very normal, yeah.
And so it's just like, so it's going to keep happening.
Especially on the front of these magazines now, they're putting overweight women on as if say this is good, and it's celebrated. And Jordan Peterson got in trouble for this. He was like, that is not good.
But I'm not. I would. It's when you have this conversation, it's like you're not saying somebody has to look a certain way. This is how you have to look, or you know, there's a certain size you've got to be, and all the rest. Be whoever you want. Be as small as you want. Be as big as you want. But don't pretend that it's healthy for a population.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem I have. It's like we're making it like normal to be drastically overweight.
Sure.
Didn't expect our conversation to go this way.
I'll never know what we're going to talk about, man.
And I think that the more you normalise something, the more common that's going to become. And that's not helping anyone, is it? It's not helping anyone. It's like, it's not helping anyone. It's certainly not, not helping people's mental health to a great deal. And so if someone's watching this and they're really overweight and they're, you know, they may be offended by this or whatever, I'd be like, if you're happy, fine, crack on. If you're truly happy, you know what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you shouldn't be happy. I'm just saying, well, let's not pretend it's healthy.
Well, if you were truly happy, you wouldn't be offended by this conversation.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. You'd just be like, that's their opinion, cool, and crack on.
Yeah, so I suppose, I don't know why we're talking about this now. I've completely
honestly, the
lost
most
my
offended people
trail
are the most people with the most issues.
Yeah.
And they can't process them.
Without a doubt.
And they point outwards, not inwards.
So I talk about this a lot in the office, and I've talked about it a lot in my academy lives. Normalization is a powerful tool to rapidly speed up results. If you can start normalizing, say you want to have a certain result in your life, be it financial or physical. If you can start to normalize some of the behaviors involved with it, or certainly, if you want to be, people say to me about being, if you're in business and you want to make more money, one of the quickest ways to open up your kind of mind is hang out with people who are making money in business, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then they have these conversations about big sums of money that you start to normalize. You start having them. They don't seem a big deal. And it takes the edge off this big goal.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? If you're like, oh my God, that's a huge amount of money, I'll never be able to make that. Well, you're probably never going to be able to make it.
Yep.
But when it becomes a normal part, then the friction between you and the goal is much easier.
Sure. That's what Unbreakable and The Better Man are, isn't it? It's normalising a healthy community. And
yeah, so it's like, wow, I'm reducing the friction is how I'd look at it. And any behaviour you want to stop, you add friction, don't you?
Yep. Yeah, you make it harder for sure.
Yeah, which is why smoking's probably a lot less now, because you buy a pack of cigarettes and it's like, here's a picture of some shit lungs, and you can't got to smoke outside in the cold. We've really made it kind of hard. It's expensive and almost a little bit, almost like, oh God, a smoker.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of shame. I don't think you're ever going to improve people's physical health by normalising and reducing the friction in living an unhealthy life. It's like become easier. So I think that's just going to become a big problem.
Yeah. So how do you add friction then as a society?
Well, maybe on certain things we should just start, maybe you should buy stuff. Just, a bit of a joke, but maybe you should buy stuff. Imagine if you treated it the same way you treat smoking. Just imagine that for a moment. As in, like, you're like, oh, that's a really high, fat thing, and you got a picture of somebody who's been cut open, who was obese and died because, of their obesity problems.
So what about in terms of, like, on the economic side, do you think maybe put the prices up of junk food and reduce the prices of healthy food? Because it's the opposite way right now, right? Like, it's like, if you've got the finance, you can buy these nice organic products, or if you're on a budget, do you know what? This cheap shit, this junk processed food is actually probably more viable. Yeah.
So, I mean, moving off the topic of obesity, probably, I just think the normalization of that is going to encourage that. I don't think it should be a conversation between, it's either happiness or health. I think you can have both, can't you?
Well, can you have happiness without health?
Apparently.
Really?
Well,
but the number one cause of depression is immobility. And I know that people who lose their health, the number one thing they want back is their health.
Yeah, we live in the land of extremes as well, don't we? You could listen to this and be like, oh God, so everyone's got to be really fit and healthy, have they? Really always trying? Not really, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying everyone's got to do anything. I'm just saying, if someone who helps people change their behaviour, we talked about body positivity, it's like, that's all wonderful if you truly feel and mean that. But if you're using it as denial to plaster over the things you don't want to see, they will keep rearing their head.
No, I agree.
And our positivity in many cases is normalizing things that are not helpful for individuals. There is a massive correlation between the people I see come through some of the things I do and their physical health. I'm not saying it's the only thing, because we're a whole system, but a huge amount of people who are possibly unhappy also aren't particularly taking care of their physical health as well.
Yeah, I'm
not saying it's the thing, because I know I've been in really good physical shape and not been in a good place at all. But this all contributes.
Sure. And somebody who doesn't take care of themselves, I think it is an insight into their mindset. From basic hygiene to basic nutrition to basic movement. I think if you really respected yourself, you would do the things that you would say take care of yourself, like you would someone you loved. So if you were bringing up a child, you would want them to be healthy, you would want them to be clean and looked after and playing and fun. But to spin that back on themselves is quite difficult. I think that's answered one of the questions about a 10x life. It's like, get around people where normalization is the direction that you want to go.
I suppose when I taught that 10x, I suppose I'd still teach it in a sense now. I was just, with that 10x, it's just trying to see where people's limitations come in. It's like, can you even envision a life 10 times bigger? You don't have. I always talk about it as a game. You don't have to go and create the life. But could you? What would a 10x your life be? What would 10x this podcast be?
See, I can't even do that.
What would 100x this podcast be? And it's hard to quantify. If it's numbers, you could say, well, business, it's 10 times the income, or, But it's like, well, it's hard to quantify in other areas of your life. But if you're like, allow yourself to think bigger. Allow yourself to open your mind to the possibilities of what this would look like. And you doesn't say you have to go and have it. I've got to make that happen now. But I think if you can open your mind up to possibility, to a bigger possibility of a bigger future than you might possibly want, you get to see. Your brain's a wonderful thing. You've got this the belief spotlight kind of thing. If you believe X is possible, then you're going to see down that narrow tunnel of vision, and the opportunities you see exist inside that narrow tunnel. If you open up and say, well, what if this could happen? Then all of a sudden the spotlight becomes bigger, and you see other opportunities that could possibly help you get there, that were existing outside of that original narrow kind of spotlight. Do you see what I'm saying?
Do you need to believe it though?
I don't think to start with. I think you have to open up to like what I love to set the what if. What if's a great question. You know, what if there was no limit to the quality of the Better Man show? What if there was no financial constraints? You're like, well, there is, but just open up. What if there wasn't? What would you do? Who would you have? And once you open that up, your mind's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You know, it will find, it will see opportunities it didn't see before. Do you see what I'm saying?
How do you help someone with very limiting beliefs then?
In what sense?
So, okay, someone hasn't even got the skill set to answer that question. Like, what would my life look like?
Well, I would never ask that question to somebody who was struggling with where they were at. I would only ask that of somebody who'd reached a certain level of progress in their life and felt a plateau.
So do you think this comes after a certain amount of doing the work, proving to yourself that you're capable of nailing the basics? And, you know, because
it's coaching, isn't it? That question would come. Someone like you came into that program, you'd done a lot of stuff, you'd done a lot of things, and so it's like, Alex, what's 10? Come on. Yeah. We need to think bigger to get more motivated. Yeah. But if Alex of however many years ago walked into that room,
sure,
and you're like, just generally you'd be focused on what you don't want probably and what's going wrong. So we wouldn't be going, well, 10x your life, because your brain's just going to go, oh, I can't even think about that.
That's kind of where Paul took us though a little bit. It was like, and I get the question, like, what would you want to achieve in 90 days, 5 years, 10 years? I get it, and it was quite helpful. The issue I had, not with Paul's instruction, but with what I had, I wasn't capable. I didn't have the skill set or capacity to pull off the things needed to be done to get to my target. And
it's the type of target you set. So if I was to explain, when people come into an intro course for, say, an academy, we're not setting big grand visions generally. It's kind of like, hey, what don't you want in your life? What don't you want so much of? What's the opposite of that? Sort of flipping it. Because I think if you get clear on what you don't want, it allows you to get clear on what you want. I might sort of say, you know, what would an ideal week look like to you right now? You know, what would a good day look like to you right now?
Yeah. Okay.
And work on that stuff. And then like, you know, if how would you like to feel in your average week? Those kind of questions to almost figure out, like, well, yeah, what would a good week look like? What would a good day look like? You know, what is it I don't want, and what is the opposite of that? Just morph this general direction, this general idea of a life. It's not necessarily, you need to go and do this 20 times in the next 90 days, or you need to, like, what is the goal you have, physical? Maybe you need to go to the gym 14 times. It's very much like, you'd say quite a softly approach, because we're guiding them through the steps to get themselves in some kind of foundation. Now, as they progress through that, and maybe we reach what we call set level 2 in Unbreakable, the focus shifts towards outer world. So we've kind of got self in order, and it's like, okay, look at your relationships, look at your life, you know, the external world. Kind of, we start moving their vision more external. You see what I'm saying? Whereas at the start, in my experiences, like you said, it's like, I don't really know what I want from my life. I just need to get my shit together, is what most people are thinking at the start. And so that's our focus. It's like, get your shit together. And otherwise people tend to chase goals early on, that they actually set that they don't really mean. Don't set a goal. Why? Because that's what I need to do. I need a goal. So we set we set generic goals that don't really mean much to us. I always prefer to get people in a solid place and then start looking at goals. Do you know what I mean? Like more external goals.
Yeah, I think there's benefit to setting goals that you don't achieve and that don't matter, because So I spent probably 2 years doing that, and then it led me towards like, well, actually, let's stop. Why aren't you getting closer to where you want to be? And I actually realised I didn't have the skills needed. So I didn't have discipline, for example. I didn't have courage. So I went a little bit backwards before I started creating goals again. I thought, well, how can I be a more disciplined individual? How can I be a more disciplined man?
Yeah.
So my goal started to become more about...
You were learning from your failings, so to speak, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, because sometimes the goals weren't the issue. Like I said, it was the skill set of the individual to get there. So if you have a look at discipline, it's needed to achieve everything.
Yeah.
So you could give me the world's greatest plan. If I haven't got the discipline to stick to it, it's irrelevant. And you'll find there's a common thread for a lot of people. They try everything and nothing works. Well, it does work. It's just you haven't got the discipline to stick to it. So I went and trained that. So I started with things like basic hygiene principles, and get up time was key for me. Can I get out of bed?
Yeah. I think the way you start your day, I think there's a lot to be said in personal development. In when we start doing stuff like that, it's very easy to do a lot of learning, a lot of practice, but not that doesn't actually impact our day. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, actually get up, get out of bed, make your bed, like put some decent clothes on. Do you know what I mean? Like, do your hair, whatever
Smell
it may
good,
be.
shower.
Like, sort yourself out, hydrate.
Sure.
Like that alone can be like straighten you up a bit, can't it?
Yeah.
In a sense, I think a lot of people start there. It's like, shit, I'm taking some responsibility and maybe some care over the things in my life. Look after the, drive to work properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get to work. It's like, can you do things well? The things you're already doing. I learned that a lot off Dan DePani. It's like, if you want to learn to focus, whatever you're doing, do it well. If you're drinking that drink, just drink it well. If you're making your bed in the morning, really make it well.
See, how does he get a good rep, but Tate gets fucking annihilated?
Who's that?
Dan DePena.
Dan DePani?
Oh, I'm thinking of Dan.
Dan, you're thinking of
Dan Pena.
Dan Pena. I'm Dan DePani.
Oh, similar.
He's very different to Andrew Tate.
He's the guy who did the book, When Things Fall Apart or Not.
No, that is...
Who's that? Because that's similar.
Pina...
Anyway, I'll bring you off path.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yes, because you
I
can
know
achieve all
people,
your goals.
you meditate for 20 minutes, you go about your day, and you forget all that meditation, you're just scattered and just fucking... And that was a big thing for me. I was like somebody who could meditate for 40 minutes a day. Now I just go about my day with not much care. Not like I don't care. I mean, as in, I'd be like, oh, just leave my cup on the side. And yeah, kind of relaxed attitude I have. He got me to say, if you can have breakfast in the morning, really, really have breakfast. Take your time, cook it well, eat it, tidy it up, put it away. That's your focus. Train your focus while you're eating.
It's
if you're driving to work, drive to work.
Yeah, I get that. But this is what I mean. The goals are not as important as the characteristics that we display, I don't think.
No.
Like, you can handle failure, right? But can you handle, like, behaving in a despicable fucking way? I know which one I would rather. So I've actually come to peace with this, that I might never be successful. But
that's your own definition.
For sure, but coming to peace with that, because I've always thought about building something big, and now I'm like, but you know what? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm more interested in like what I learned from the retreat. Like, can I do that? Because that's more important now.
What are you going to do?
Well, I've already been putting things in place. So one thing I've done is been very careful about, like, say, Jeff Thompson taught me it was like putting a doorman on the front of your mind, and you be careful what you let in, and you have a team of people with you, and be careful. So I've been very careful about music, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, who I'm speaking to, my thoughts.
Basically, your mental diet.
1000% my palate, and then I'm trying to put in more nervous system drills. They're actually going to relax me a bit, so more breathing. The content I'm reading. I'm trying to do things like, even like when I saw you today, like the hug that I give you now, it's more of a like, I'm really glad to see you, and it's not fake. I really am glad to see you.
But you're making some effort.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you that I'm glad to see you.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to.
I felt very glad. I felt like you were glad to see me.
I was.
Yeah.
Before though, I could have just said, "Oh, it's good to see you, mate." And there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. It's just, it makes me actually feel better to show you that I'm fucking really glad you're here.
Yeah, you're just practicing expressing some emotion in you.
Sure.
That's what you're doing.
Sure.
You're like, I'm actually going to let my emotions, because I'm an emotional kid, mate. I am. I will cry at music. I'm that person. I saw some foxes on the way here, dead on the road. I saw an adult and then a baby just up the road. That got me, mate. I was
I know.
like I'm an emotional kid, and I'm a hopeless romantic about things, about life. I can romanticize everything. I'm gonna go away from here and be like, oh, Alex, mate, he's had that epiphany. It's gonna make me feel good. But I'm gonna be like, this is brilliant. I'll probably message you, Alex, this is brilliant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're seeing this thing.
Yeah.
You can see it. I can see it in you, which is fantastic. But I am one of those people. I don't know if I've always been like that. I don't think I have. I think I can relate to what you're doing, because for a long time I just put a barrier up from anyone and everything. I would never let myself get too involved with anything.
It's just with relationships, though, for me. Like, you know what you just said about the foxes? I'm the same. If I see a dead deer or a badger, I'm like, oh no. Or I was watching Chimp Empire the other day. There was a chimp called Gus who had no friends. I was like,
yeah.
I know, I was like...
If that had been an adult, we'd have been, a human. What? Chimp? Oh, God, this chimp's got no friends.
So sad.
I was friends with a chimp. But I think sometimes we can fall into this pattern, though, of... it's identity, again, that we've spoken about. It's like you identify as somebody who maybe, it's just the way I am. I just don't connect very well with people. And we can almost... what am I trying to say? We can almost kind of like it, even though it's not very useful. Do you know what I'm saying? We can almost like
that's
it.
The battle.
And if you look at the men then you've followed,
that's the battle.
You've just reinforced it by listening to men who
hard, tough men.
Yeah, I mean, that reinforces this fact that I'm just so afraid to let go.
Yeah.
And be hurt. And be vulnerable.
Dude, I swear.
Because nothing's harder in relationships.
As well. All this income muscle, like, it's armor.
Yeah,
man.
but that's good for you. It's not just go and be like, I'm not going to train it. Don't be that. Because there's always an overreaction with people in this.
No.
It's like, that's it.
I get it.
I'm not going to call it the better man. I'm going to call it the lover man.
No, that won't change, bro. I still believe toughness is good. It's just like you only use so much, right?
Again, it's to what effect does this impact? To what extent does this impact my life?
Yeah.
And where's the balance? Am I tipping so far over to toughness that I'm not allowing anything in?
Exactly
or am I now having a complete overreaction the other way?
Yeah.
Forgetting toughness, and discipline and all that kind of stuff, and being like, I'm going the other way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's finding your balance.
Sure.
Isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a trick to find for all of us. But I think we almost, like you said, you fall in love with that little identity, and then we reinforce it by the people we listen to, and they make it right and they make it okay, and then you go away and you spend some time with yourself and it shatters.
Yeah.
Then you go, fuck.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I've been just reinforcing this stuff it's not helping me anymore, it's hindering me. The thing is, though, I don't know if you've come to this realization, but you can look back and go, it did help me for a long time though, didn't it?
Sure.
And it's growth. It's like, that helped me for a long time. But it's not coming with me. It no longer serves me.
Yeah, for sure.
It probably got you through some shit, got you through, tough some stuff out.
Dude, it could have saved my life. It's one of them. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, it was that low.
Exactly. But then it's like, actually, I'm growing out of this.
Yeah.
That's growth.
Well, it's weird, man. Life's so weird.
It all serves us at some point.
I know. But part of me was there thinking, I've got to do all this. This is life, It's Jeff says life is cleaning. That's what you do. You clean for your whole of your life.
Yeah, it's not a bad way of looking at it, is it?
But that's what we're here for. It's insane.
Well, I think there's going to be many people who are not listening to this because they wouldn't care enough. But there are probably people out there now who are probably not really thinking much about themselves and their lives. Probably it's not a bad thing, is it? I look at you think just meandering through, probably not really consciously thinking about this work.
There's definitely those people, yeah. I don't know whether this is like a DNA thing, like something that's in you, or whether you decide to be somebody who analyses their life. Because some people generally just won't.
What made you decide to do it? I don't know what. I think people say, why did you get into all this stuff, Si? Like, I don't really... I never thought I'd end up at this point. I just knew I needed to... Personally, I don't know you, I just thought, shit ain't working for me. And you look round and you think, well, it seems to be working for them, and they think this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just knew this shit wasn't working for me, and I just knew that, like, I wanted more, but I wasn't doing it, and I wasn't going after it. Do you know what I mean? And I'd always been quite an inwardly focused person in a sense. I was always very aware of my thoughts and my feelings and stuff like that. But I almost didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite destructive on times,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I know many people aren't really aware of themselves and stuff. And in a way, I kind of envy them for a certain extent. But, you know, they're much more maybe not aware of that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I've always been aware. Even from a kid, I was always quite an anxious, nervous kid.
I think the danger is that you have the awareness on your deathbed, though. Hopefully we can avoid that, you know. I think there's a guest I had on a few weeks ago, and he spoke about his dad who had an epiphany pretty much on his deathbed, who realised, oh my God, I've never loved. Oh my God, I've been angry all my life. Oh my God. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, do we want that epiphany now as a middle-aged man? And it is a death of some form. You have to, like you say, you have to
Life
let go.
is death all the time.
I know. But you have to divorce that guy.
There's been a death of Alex.
Sure, man.
I'm not even joking. Since last time I spoke to you,
Oh, no.
when we were chatting and we were talking about relationships, to now, I'm like, fucking hell, a little bit of you died over there, didn't it? Like, well, you know, in a sense, a little bit of you went, nah, I don't, you don't serve me anymore, do you?
The difference here, Si, is it's not something I learn, it's something I've been through, so you can't go through it. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you pick up a book and you read it, you can shut it and go, well, that was good, but I'm going to crack on as normal. This is a little bit more transformative, I
It's
think.
like heartbreak and stuff.
Yeah.
You can read about heartbreak, and then you have your heart broken, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, this is...
Yeah, you've got to taste it.
There's a lot in this, isn't there? You experience that sort of, you know, that pain, you know, and the transformation that can come with it. But I think, yeah, we're constantly dying, aren't we? Death is a real... Even contemplating your own death, can, you know, they do that in a lot of spiritual practices, contemplate your own death. Because it is a sort of, how do we say it? Not a sharpener, but it seems to be a great leveler of, like, importance. It's like, ooh.
And for people who struggle with time concept, apparently Stoics were really in tune with time because they kind of like made death a reality. So when we talk about procrastination and wasting time, they did less of it because they were really super aware that they were going to die. Whereas most people, I think, myself included, don't really think that we're going to be that old man with a fucking Zimmer frame.
I'm well aware I'm getting an old man. I was in the pub the other week.
Yeah, but how old? Like, do you think you're going to be that old, man, or do you just know you're getting older?
I mean, I'm getting older. I was in the pub the other week, and I was chatting to the barman, and they have a lot of uni students come in and work there. So hotel, and there's a few there, and they just chat to you because I'm in there. And I'm chatting to the barman. He's a bit older than me, 42, 43.
Yeah.
And we were going about Worcester, local. You know, he's like, I've been to Worcester for years now. Normally, he's like, where would you even go now? So I don't know. There's a girl on the bar, 23, 24. Nice girl, lovely girl, chat to her all the time. Not this relevant, but very attractive girl.
Uh-huh.
And he says to her, hey, so-and-so, where would we go in Worcester if we wanted a few beers? And, you know, she's an attractive 23-year-old. I consider myself a, you know, handsome 37-year-old, you know, cool person, you know, trendy. She goes, I don't know, I'm trying to think where my dad would go. And she was dead serious. And then she sort of clocked herself, and we both looked at her. She went, I didn't mean it like that. You're like, no, you did.
You did.
You've put me in the dad category. Your dad,
Mate.
same age as your dad. And I thought, yeah, I think I'm getting a bit older, aren't I?
Shit.
Yeah.
Similar thing happened to me today upstairs. There's this girl that works in one of the companies upstairs. She's a really pretty girl, but she's 19, man. But like the way she was talking, you realise you're a different fucking generation, man. In your head, not so much. Like, I don't know about you, my mind's still quite youthful.
It's a weird thing because you always look at yourself still in your 20s.
Do you ever catch yourself in the mirror though? And like Mike Moore says to me, he's 69. He's like, Alex, I still feel the same as I did when I was 20.
Well, that's a good thing. Got to be.
I think so. I think it's a healthy thing. But like then he says like you might catch yourself in the mirror or see the wrinkles or notice that your training performance is nowhere near what it used to be, or you see a picture of yourself when you were 20 and you go, fucking hell, I was in good shape. I just didn't fucking know.
Yeah,
it.
I've done that. Yeah, and
It's
also
like,
you. I actually contemplate myself getting older a lot more the last few years. I've noticed that. I don't know if it's a natural thing that happens around this age for people, possibly family. I don't know, but I certainly have become much more aware of like, oh fuck, like, you know, much more aware of, you know, not death. That's a bit of a weird thing to say, but much more aware of. My life seems to speeded up. It's almost like I've gone from 30 to nearly 40 in like a minute. You're like, oh wow, life's really picked up some speed, and it feels like it's
they reckon it
cascading on
goes
quite quick.
faster when you get older because it's more routine-y and similar. So you know when you get up the same time every day and do the same thing every day, although it's like a little bit of a success method. You know, you get up, you do your morning routine, you write, you do your business. They reckon because the lack of variety, it can go a lot faster. Yeah. Whereas if you did something different every day, which
you're almost cramming things into time.
Yeah, which in reality, like, can you do that? And
well, you probably do a fair bit of different things. You've got a lot of freedom.
I do, but it's balanced. Like, my business isn't exactly growing because I'm not sitting and doing the work. I'm off doing the lakes. I'm off this weekend visiting clients in Southampton, all over the shop, and I love it. But it's not. I wouldn't say it was a successful way to build a business.
No, but imagine if you just thought you got to 45 and went, well, you know, I'm going to spend 5 years really building my business. You would. You're obviously doing all right, mate. You can travel around and do stuff.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. But there is a little part of me now that's like, well, I need some money because I haven't got a pension like most people who are employed. So you go, I don't want to be broke at 65. No. But then again, I don't want to put my life on hold now for when I'm 65.
No. That's a Beatles song, mate, when I'm 65.
Is it?
I'm sure.
I've just started listening to all the old music too. Have you? Like, do you listen?
I've always listened to old music.
Like
always.
Proper old though. I'm like talking like 50s, 60s stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm always 40s.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I love music.
Wow.
So, mate, I've always listened to old music. People used to say to me, when I was younger, like, you're born in the wrong era, mate.
Yeah.
What's all this you're listening to? You're like, I love stuff. I'm obsessed with the Rolling Stones at the minute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stick some of their stuff on because I love like Wild Horses and stuff like that and Gimme Shelter, but I don't really know.
Gimme Shelter's about her when it's loud, but there's some really good stuff. I'm gonna send you an album. I'll be like, get on this album.
I've been listening to soul since I've been back.
There's a great track. It's called "Laugh I Nearly Died," I think, or I Nearly Cried, mate. I sent it to Mark. I said, "Can we get this as the outro to the show?" He was like, "Don't think we got the budget for Rolling Stones."
I know.
I was
all
like,
that stuff costs.
Keith Richards seems a nice bloke. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure he just let us have it.
Yeah, right. Are you doing your podcast with like fancy intros and outros and stuff? Mate, I hit record and just
it's literally hit record and go. But I'm obsessed with. I was like, I want some music on the outro. I don't know why. Just different music every time. You know, like shows have a bit of music on the outro, and it's usually relevant to the thing.
You have to get it all copyright free though and all that, don't you?
Yeah.
It's hard nowadays. There's what's that website I use where you can buy like music for like 40, 50 quid. Some good tunes on there.
Is there?
But if you're going to do that every time, it'd be expensive.
Yeah.
And there's free samples, but it has something over the top like a voice.
You're listening to a free sample.
Yeah, that kind of
Cheers.
thing. So yeah, you don't want any of that. But it'd be interesting to see where you take your podcast. What do you talk about? All this kind of stuff.
Anything I get at.
Anything.
Anything. What was I talking about? We talked about loads when I went up last time. Just little things I've got going on. Sometimes little things I'm thinking about, because you start thinking about lots of different things, don't you? Because you see a lot of the population.
What's the aim then? Do you think about it? Do you have like strategy, or do you just follow your? I'd really love to do a podcast.
The strategy of it really was to give me a lot more ways to put content out. That was the first thing. It's like I want to put loads more content out, and I want it in a format where people don't just see me walking my dog on a video.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I want it in a different, like this kind of conversation.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show a different side of me, really.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. So it was the idea of to show a different side of me in conversation. I'm going to get our members on there and things like that.
You are?
Yeah, and just chat to them.
Cool.
But, well, you know, not like, let's plug Unbreakable. It's not about that. I just like to hear where they've come from and where they're at now, and have a proper conversation with them, because you don't get to do that in the sort of something of what I'm doing.
No, I think that's the key to content too. It's like if you can do something that you love and it produces content, and great, because sitting there writing content is dull as fuck. I hate it.
Yeah, and also I just wanted a bit of a creative outlet for me.
Yeah,
I've got stuff I want to say, but you know, where do you say it? Do just people tune in on a Sunday in our academy, for example, and want to hear me rant on about body positivity? Probably not. They want to hear me deliver what they need to hear that week in terms of our training, our skills that we're teaching them. I can't just go on a 40-minute rant about body positivity.
Here's one for you. I'm really struggling with this at the minute. I feel quite humble anyway. Like I always, like, I wouldn't want loads of followers, and sometimes I feel like I shouldn't say anything because what I say doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Do you get that?
Yeah, I suppose I look at it a different way. Whatever I'm writing for me.
Yeah.
If people like it, that's fantastic. And if they don't, that's also great for them. But I'm writing for me. Like, I'm saying it for me. I've got things I want to say that I think can add value to the world, and I'm going to say it because I want to say it. The moment I start thinking, I wonder what that lady out there wonder what she wonder what she needs to hear today. It's like, well, no, I'm caught up in that, sort of battle of, does that really matter? Is that valuable? Do you know what I mean? And for me, it's like, I just want to write what I want to write. I just want to talk about what I talk about. If people like it, great. And if they don't, well, they're like somebody else, weren't they?
Yeah, I don't know where you're at with your development, but I've kind of reached a level of awareness that I know I'm going to have a lifetime's worth of work to do on myself. So therefore, me telling someone what to do seems completely ludicrous.
Well, exactly. But I would say we're never telling people what to do. I'm just sharing what's possibly worked for me, sharing things people could possibly do. I never like to come across as, you need to do this. You need to live like me.
Yeah.
I think that is dangerous for people, because advice doesn't, I spoke about this, I don't think advice really transitions across. I'd give you some advice right now about relationships, Alex, but is that relevant to you and what you've been through and where you're at? You've gone through an experience where you've saw for yourself. I could have said to you last time, Alex, you seem to have a real blocker around relationships and and feeling and emotion, and you've been, you need to sort that out. You might have been like, what? But you saw it on your own, didn't you?
Do you think people listen to advice? Do you think advice ever works? Or is it, again, timing and where they're at that point?
I think it depends where you're at. I've had some great advice from people I've not paid for advice, for example. But I suppose the delivery of advice, you've got to be very careful with advice, haven't you? I don't like to give advice to anyone about their life, because I want people to think for themselves. If it's in coaching, I'll never give them advice how to live their life. It's like helping them find out how they want to live their life and giving them the tools. Even in friends and that, you're like, am I going to give you advice on what I think you should do? No. If someone asks me, yeah.
It's different then, isn't it? If I come to you and say, psych, I've got this problem, can I pick your brains on it? I think the trouble is when you start giving it, and I'm like, whoa.
And also, there's always, I always say, like with information, people like information's everywhere, but unfortunately, because information's everywhere and it's quite cheap to access, people tend to value it less.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, so I think it's lobbing out loads of advice. It's just there in front of them. If I read through something on Facebook and go, oh, that's interesting, and I'm reading the next thing, am I really invested in what I've just read? Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if we're having a personal conversation, you come up to me and say, Si, I'm really struggling, with this, and you started talking to me about it, and I've tried this, and then I was like, okay, Alex, what about this? And I gave you some advice. You're probably going to absorb that much better, aren't you?
It's different, yeah. I think that's why I'm going around visiting all my clients now, because I'm like, we can get to this level of conversation. Yeah. Something that we can't do via a quick Zoom call or via a social media post or a WhatsApp message.
But there's different models. Go back to business, isn't there, of business. Some people want to be famous. Some people want the fame, and they want to be famous, and they want everyone to hang off their every word, and they want people to give out advice, and that makes them feel great. And if that's them, that's good. I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but that's never going to be me.
I've become very judgmental of those people.
Yeah, probably because you dislike it, and maybe that's a good thing, because you're learning about yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what people want, that's fair enough. I had this conversation with someone in my DMs was talking to me about this. And it's because I was probably quite vocal about it for a long time, as I was figuring myself out, really. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, well, who wouldn't want to be a celebrity? You're like, well, loads of people, And then we started talking. It was almost like, well, they must make more money because they're a celebrity. And it's like, really? Like, there's a bloke who lives up from me, or where I used to live, who flies his helicopter in every day to his massive house. I don't know who he is, and no one knows who he is. He makes braids or something, makes cloth, and the man is insanely wealthy. Like, do you know what I mean? Being a celebrity doesn't necessarily make you wealthy, does it? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what people's kind of think. I suppose what I'm trying to say is I think sometimes people think if you are more popular, you must be doing better, or you're doing more financially better, but I don't think any of those things are true. So when people say to me, like, you need to become almost famous to impact people, you need to become famous to make money, it's like, none of that's true.
I think people...
None of that is true, is it? Is that true? Like,
I don't know. I think people assume celebrities are happier people because they have more. Yeah.
If you look at our sort of industry, though, just to term it to there, or business, it's like, really? What? So the more famous you are, the more impactful. It's like, that depends how you measure impact. Are you actually making an impact because 5,000 people liked your post? Really? I could put... my most liked post a picture of my dog. I wouldn't say it was particularly impactful that day. Do you know what I mean? What are we gauging success on? Then I had to figure out if it was a bit of bitterness in me. But I think I eventually came to the realization it's just not in my character.
Sure.
I don't... It's not in my character to want to stand out necessarily.
Do you know what I'd love? Do you know what the one thing I can think about being awesome about being like a top celebrity is? You know those like Nando's black cards?
I don't like Nando's, mate.
Do you not?
No.
Okay, where's your favourite restaurant? Or pub?
Pub?
Okay,
think of my favourite pub. Okay, I've got it.
And your favourite pub says, "Oh, Simon, you're a celebrity. Here's a card. You can eat and drink whatever you want in here."
Be an alcoholic.
Yeah. But you know, these like I think Auntie Joshua like gets a Nando's card, and you can just
go Auntie Joshua.
Which is insane because they got the most money.
I'm sure he'd prefer to win a few boxing matches.
I know, but I'm like, they're the kind of things that I would love to be famous for. Just to get those, never have to pay for a Nando's again. But yeah, in terms of following and not being out and being noticed, I can't think of anything worse, man.
It must be hard being a celebrity. Imagine.
I think so.
Your every kind of action and being critiqued, and people. What's worse now is like people can video you, can't they?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
Caroline Flack, man, she killed herself.
I mean, I think it was Kevin Hart talks about this. He's like, you lot are worse than the police. You know, you're always in my face with your camera when I shouldn't be doing something. It's like, oh my god, get you on camera. It's like, oh my god, it's true. Like social media now, people don't think twice of recording shit, do they? So I'd hate to, imagine feeling like the whole world was watching you all the time.
Yeah, I don't know how they keep their shit together. I'd lose the plot.
Imagine just being at the pub having a pint and people videoing you and stuff.
Get angry, I know.
And you're like, it'd be like, wow. You take it as a compliment, can you? But you can see why people flip out eventually. You be like Conor McGregor. I was watching his documentary, and he seems a genuinely nice bloke, I think.
Is this his latest one?
Yeah, he comes across quite well, isn't it?
I think so.
He seems a genuinely nice bloke when he's out and about, always talking to fans. But now and again, you must just get fed. Imagine if you're in a bad mood, you just had an argument with a missus and some flipping fans recording you and smacking something in your face, and you're a fighter, for example. Yeah,
he's got an interesting mindset, hasn't he? He's very confident in himself. I really kind of like admire him for that. I mean, I felt like I felt like he was acting at some parts of his press conference with Khabib and that. Like, I felt like it, but in terms of like who he is and what he thinks of himself, he takes himself in high regard, man. Yeah, he's kind of got into the mindset of a champion there.
Without a doubt. What's interesting about that one, I haven't finished it yet, but the first one when they're following that Khabib fight, the camp, John Kavanagh's such a switched on bloke.
Yeah.
And he's talking about him and he's like, he was angry and he wasn't learning.
Yeah, it was dark.
It was dark and he wanted to hurt people, so he wasn't sparring and learning from the process. He was just scrapping. And he picked up a lot of injuries when he was that bitter as well, didn't he? He was always injuring little bits here and there.
Do you think he was drinking at the time as well? Because even at the press conference,
undoubtedly, they were saying he was drinking in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it just clouds your I suppose it clouded his judgment, didn't it? Do you know what I mean? It clouded his... It goes back to what we're talking about when a lot of bitterness and anger and stuff, it does cloud.
Well, not that I want to spoil it for you, but he fights Dustin No.
Yeah, and he loses.
No, there's a guy after that he fought. I can't remember who it is. Before he fought Poirier, or if that's how you say his name.
Donald Cerrone.
Yes.
Yeah, he beat him, didn't he?
Very comfortably, but his training camp was so different. He was happy, he was having fun, and they were saying the difference between the two. Like, you think that anger would be, Conor's at his best. They were like, he's at his worst.
Yeah.
When he was chilled, shaking the guy's hands and happy, he was actually performed really well. It was weird.
Yeah. Well,
the fight he lost, they said he needed his bitterness back. So I don't know.
I was watching The Godfather. And he says, he was like, it was Godfather 3, which is not quite so good, but he says, never hate your enemy. It clouds your judgment.
Yeah.
That is true.
I know.
You know what I mean? I get that goes back to being able to feel. If we're always repressing how we feel, it clouds our vision in life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All our undealt with shit clouds the way we see our day-to-day life.
Yeah, and again, nature's a real good lesson. Like, so even sleeping next to that stream, mate, I know it sounds really cliche, but like it kept flowing. And the instant lesson was like, whatever you're feeling, it will pass and it will flow through you. Because I think we get stuck sometimes in our emotions. Like, say, you're angry, so you see the world with those angry lenses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your missus all of a sudden is fucking, she's the problem. My boss is the problem. I'm the fucking go. And everything you see is through that.
Well, your stream that was running, when you're not suppressed, when you're not feeling what you need to feel, you're basically putting a dam there.
Yeah.
You're basically holding that stream with your hand.
Yeah.
Aren't you? And it's building up the pressure, then you can't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
And all of it comes out in a way that is very unuseful usually.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's where a lot of breakdowns and stuff come from.
Sure.
Pure repression.
You get stuck in there.
Is it repression or suppression? They're slightly different, but pure like keeping shit down, then eventually it all comes out. People do crazy shit.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you doing? You're destroying your life in a year. What's going on? It's like all that built up stuff has to come out, doesn't it?
Jeff always says, what was it? He says demons can't cross moving water or something like that. So he's saying if you can just continue to let things flow, keep things moving, don't let things get stuck. If anger gets stuck in you,
because we all get angry, right?
Yeah,
that's a natural response of the thing we are.
Some people can let it go though. Some people hold on to it and they feed off it, and it feeds them. Because I've noticed my motivation's been really low since I've got back. But I used to feed my motivation from anger.
Yeah, you've got to find a different source, man.
Yeah, so now I'm just sitting with that. Because before, it'd be like, let's stick fucking Tate on or Goggins. Let's get angry and let's get after it.
Yeah,
and I'll fucking show that person.
Yeah. I actually wrote about this last week. And I think...
When's this book coming out, by the way? Now you're speaking about writing.
September.
Official? Is it done?
Tomorrow I get the layout.
Are you self-publishing?
Yeah,
okay.
But I get the layout from the editor, so it's nice to do it. Yeah.
So it's done.
Hopefully, I'm going to print it off. Well, I'm not going to print it off. They'll send a book to me from Amazon, and I'll.
It's big time.
I'll look. I'll read it.
How weird is that going to be holding your own book in your hand?
Well, I wrote it with Sarah, who works for me.
Okay.
She's really good.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like, I don't know, the yin to my yang. I don't know which way it works, but she brings a much more. Sometimes measured. She's a good writer, and she's got a big philosophical background, big, I wasn't say religious, but not religious, theological background. Travelled the world, so very knowledgeable. So she can tidy me up sometimes on what I'm saying. She can present things from, well, this, 100 years ago, this was how things were and stuff like that. So I think we've got a good balance between us. I'm excited about it. And it's a book, I'm not plugging it, but it's a book I'm excited about because it's what I would have wanted 10 years ago. It's not what I'd want necessarily now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd find it interesting to read, I think. I wrote the bloody thing. But it's actually aimed at me 10 years ago. Like, life's shit. How can I make it less shit? Like, it's almost a roadmap saying, if you're feeling the shit right now, is life like life to you? Are you in the shit? Read this book. That's what it's for. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and this will guide you through steps and principles to sort of move you towards something else.
So how does co-writing work then? Does that mean like you wrote a chapter, she wrote one? Or
no, I wrote the book,
and she's helped you
tidy it up. And
she's
gone more than tidy it up. She's contributed where she felt the need to contribute, and we've looked at it together.
So it's both your names on the book.
Yeah, it would be. I would have felt. I suppose some people would have put their own name on it, but she mentioned her in the,
Yeah, thank yous.
But I was like, you know what, you've wrote a good chunk of some of this, and I think you need to acknowledge him for that.
So you mentioned her background. Like, have you tapped into religion? Are you religious?
No, when I was younger, I used to read the Bible a lot. I've always read stuff, to be fair. No, I'm not religious. I could say that pretty. I have a belief in a higher source of energy.
Something, yeah.
I'd be more Taoist, I suppose. That, we all spring from this something, in a sense. But I'm not religious, although I can see the place of a healthy religion in society. Do you know what I mean? like I can see a place of why are people looking outside of them to other people and things like Unbreakable, really, you know, and the Better Man, they're trying to find something to help them make sense of their life. And I think religion did that for many people. I think it did.
Yeah.
I think it helped people make sense of big questions. What happens when I die, you know, and how to live, maybe. I think, personally, from looking at it, that's, for me, I think it helped people make sense of things. And I think spirituality can be the same. And I think philosophy was the same, you know, in a sense. It's like, oh, you help me make sense of the things in my life that I need to make sense of. I think there needs to be, religion's probably dying out in many places, especially, you know,
here.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I think we want to be part of something's gonna have to replace that. It's like, what's the voice of the time? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's the?
I think spirituality is trying to fill that gap. I'm not sure if it's reaching many people, but the thing about religion that's quite cool is, like, I think you need faith when you don't know the answers to those bigger questions, and you need faith when you know you're never going to find the answers to those bigger questions. So I'm going to explore it a bit more, because I don't think you can ever fully trust yourself, because we're humans and we're flawed. And I don't think you can ever trust other people 100% because they're humans and they're flawed. And I mean this on a much deeper level than just like going behind my back. I just mean, you know, the essence of humans. Right? We're just nature, right? We're just here. And there's bigger things than us.
Mm.
So I'm like, well, what can I go to when my strength can't carry me through the worst times? Or the unknowns.
Well,
like, is there something I can lean on that can keep me going and give me some faith that I'll be okay? And I think God, Jesus, higher power, whatever you want to call it.
How many people who are dying become religious?
A lot.
Yeah, and probably because bloody hell, you want to know, don't you? Like, you want to believe in something that's gonna.
I don't know if it's just you want to believe. I just think faith pushes us towards something. I don't want to believe in anything necessarily, but there's something deep within me that strives for something to put my faith into that's bigger than me.
Well, again, I love Sadhguru. I'm actually going to see Sadhguru in London because I'm in their Isha Foundation, and I love Sadhguru. I love his chipper, kind of laughy, jokey way.
He's all right.
Yeah, but I like
He was on Rogan.
Yeah. I like one of the best interviews I've ever seen was him and David Eagleman, the neuroscientist, going back and forth, because two articulate people who agreed on a lot but had differences. And David Eagleman manages Sadhguru well because he doesn't shut up. So he manages him quite well, but David Eagleman's smart. That's a book you want to read. God.
Okay. Never heard of him.
Incognito, The Secret Life of the Brain. Amazing.
We're just making out of this. David Eagleman.
You'd like that.
I ordered a new book today. I said I wasn't going to order anymore.
Yeah. But I think I love Sadhguru a lot. I think you can't help but see that everything in this planet is, from my experience, seems to be connected. You know, I think we are, when you look at the universe, because Brian Cox talk about the universe, it kind of blows your mind. It's like, oh my God, how does this even exist? And I'm not saying someone created it, you know, like a kind of all-knowing, all-seeing thing that decides what's going to happen to you today, Alex. But there is certainly, for me, the sense that I am a little bundle of life traveling around in this body with a brain. Do you know what I mean? That and I think when you get beyond all the layers of your mind and your body, there is certainly, for me, without getting too deep, a sense of like you are a higher source of energy, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're probably thinking, what's he on about?
No, not at all. I'm thinking back to what you just said about someone created it. Well, something definitely created it, didn't it? Something,
without a doubt.
And people always go to the Big Bang, but I'm like, well, what about before that? Like, why do we think that's the start?
It's weird, isn't it, when you go, what? We're never going to know these things.
No.
And I think we just need to get comfortable with that, probably, don't we? You know?
I know, but some people like to argue it so well of like, no, that's when it started, and before that there was nothing. It's like, really? How many times have we been proved wrong? We've got no idea. You can get all the scientific data you want. We've got no idea what was here pre-Big Bang.
All I know is there's a part of me that desires complete boundlessness of life. That's in everyone. I think expansion is. I never understood what people said. Human beings want to be in a state of expansion all the time. I always thought that was this strive to have more. I never quite got it. And then you're like, actually, I get it. There's a part of us that doesn't want to be, for me anyway, that doesn't want to feel confined to this body and mind and what I have. It's like there's a part of me that feels like it wants to be boundless, have no restrictions. Do you know what I mean?
What is that? Is that death?
I don't know what it is. I have no idea. All I know is...
Because it is a burden to be in this body, isn't it? There's a lot of restrictions, right?
Yeah, but without it, you wouldn't be able to navigate around this physical world we live in, would we?
Well, we don't think, but we don't know, no.
Well, true. It's one of them conversations you have and you go, this is fucking mind-boggling. Do you know what I mean? All I know is I've had experiences in my life where you go, yeah, there's a lot more to life than the physical reality. Do you know what I mean? Be that hallucinogenic experiences, or be that silent retreats, be that big long meditations where you're like, wow, like where you experience not being your body, you experience not being your mind.
You do.
These are things you have and that you've accumulated over time.
Sure.
Yeah, and you're like, wow. But then, I wouldn't necessarily say I want to live on that plane, because you wouldn't enjoy it. You've got to immerse yourself in life, haven't you? But, when people say, oh, you're not your thoughts, you're not your thoughts. People say it to me all the time, oh, but you're not your thoughts. But I don't think a huge amount of people have really, truly experienced being not their thoughts. Otherwise, they won't keep banging on about their thoughts. So it's, oh my God, my thoughts. I thought you said you weren't your thoughts. Well, I'm not, but they're crazy. It's like, well, if they won't bother you if you'd experience not being them. They'd just be passing visitors that you'd be like, oh. Do you know what I mean? So you're looking at me like, what the hell is he talking about?
No, I'm not. I like these kind of conversations. I don't have answers.
Well, who does?
But going back to the 10x, like the what if, I'm like, I like doing this in the grand scheme of life too. Well, what if this is not real? What if it is real? What if there's more after? What if there isn't? I love all that kind of stuff. I don't think you always have to have conversations needing a definitive outcome.
I think you'd be very wary, of somebody who claims to have all the answers about that, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
If someone said to me, I've got all the answers, and sometimes people do come, like they do say, well, I've got all the answers,
Well, I think that's why people will stay clear of religion too, because it's so definite. It's like, this is how things are. And some people don't like those boundaries. Some people like to fall back on them because it is certainty amongst the uncertainty. But some people don't like the certainty. It
goes back to what we were saying. I think in times when you feel like you have no control, and I was saying, God, I felt like my life was unraveling. I did anything I could, good, whatever that is, bad, whatever, to try and gain a sense of control.
Mm-hmm.
Basically a sense of, oh, I know how it's all how I like it.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what we're doing with, that's why we need answers, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Oh God, I know the answers. It all lines up nicely for me. But I think sometimes just accepting we're never going to know. It's a little bit like emotions and thoughts, all these things. It's like you're never going to control these things. If you can come to that realization, they lose a huge amount of their power anyway.
Sure.
You're never going to control them. Trying to control your mind is futile. What a word that is, in a sense, because it will drive you crazy. I think I wrote that in the chapter of this book. It's like making friends with the enemy. Like people make their mind an enemy now that needs suppressing. I beat my mind today. I beat it. What with? Your mind. You beat your mind with your mind. Like, what's beating what? Why are you in a competition with your mind? I think I had to come to that realization. Like, I don't need to like beat this thing into submission every day. I need to work with it and understand it and like become an ally, a companion. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to a flipping enemy that, oh God, here it goes again. And I realise that everyone's got different messages and at different points in their life. But sometimes when I see the landscape for men, especially across, because it is more of a masculine approach, I think, across social media, which is a place I spend a lot of time in, just face it, with work, it's like a lot of it is like, yeah, I hammer, I beat my monkey mind today, and it's like, must be exhausting, mate. I have to do that every day. Do you know what I mean? Beat your mind every day. Nah. Just make friends with it.
Yeah, I think
there's a different approach there. You might think they're the same thing, but they're not. It's sometimes the same outcome, but it's like I would always whatever we gain power. You know, people who is a saying, isn't there? People who gain power always fear losing it. I think that was in Star Wars. And I just know that I had a lot of power over my mind at one point, but I lived in a lot of fear of losing that power. So life had to be exactly how I needed it, and if it wasn't, like, oh my God, you know, my routine. My routine became a prison in itself at one point. If it didn't happen, and my life was going to be terrible that day. So, well, is that true mastery?
No, you've got to learn how to integrate all these uncertainties, all these things you don't like about yourself, all the way you wish you things you could be. Oh, recording has stopped. Don't know what that is. Let me just hit record again. We're gonna have to wrap. Oh.
We've run out, mate.
No, there's plenty of time. Don't know what's happened there. Let me just hit stop from there. Little techno error there, mate. We got cut off, but we're gonna wrap this up anyway. We were going deep.
We were going deep.
We were going big time deep.
Big time deep.
Mate, can I get a copy of your book?
Yes. We'll send it straight away.
Thank you.
We'll send it over.
The reason we got you back was because people messaged me and loved the first podcast, and I felt like we had more to talk about, which we did today.
We did. We could talk every week, probably.
Yeah, we probably could. Yeah.
What we covered today?
Thought knows where to go.
It just went body positivity. I went on a rant about that.
But you can apply that to so many other things, so it's important.
Yeah, without a doubt. The whole point of it was, hey, when does positivity become a hindering force in your life, not a helpful one?
Yeah.
That was it. And what else we covered? Bloody hell, we covered
a lot,
spirituality and thinking and your quest and your development. Do you know what, mate? It was worth driving up here to see you have that conversation.
There's so much more as well, so I'll have to tell you about it another time.
Yeah, it was.
There's so
it.
many little things in there, but I'm tired now. I always know it's a good podcast at the end when I'm like, oh, fucking hell.
I've lost my phone as well.
Yeah, we better go and find that. Bro, thank you.
Thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure.
I can come on your podcast too, man. I look forward to that.
Come on up, mate. It'd be brilliant. We can talk all about this. Well, I'll be interviewing you then. I mean, not interviewing, but I'll be like leading it, and I'll be leading you.
I look forward to that.
To the vision quest.
Cool, mate.
Go steady.